Again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a packed agenda of issues to discuss. I want to welcome our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5, West Coast Berbice. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And across the Berbice River, to all of you who are joining us on television from region number 6 along the coast of the Berbice River, New Amsterdam, Kanji, Quarantine, Siparuta, Oriala, and even beyond. I want to welcome all of our viewers who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Robb Street, Georgetown. Welcome. And last but not least, to the thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live right across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and further afield. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Share this program with your friends. Press that share button on your phone, on your computer, on your iPad, on your tablets, so that all your friends and followers can join us in tonight's discussion. Afraz Ali, Howard Samaru, Musa Ramdas, Dennis Dias, Sunil Batulal, Jit Knott, Richard Stanislaus, and so many of you. Welcome, 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 and please remember to share this program. The more shares that we have is the wider audience we will connect with. And we want the widest possible audience to join us in tonight's engagement. And I want also for you to use that comment section on your profile, on your page. Use the comment section to engage me in discussions. So, as you know, the national budget for 2025 is being debated in the National Assembly of our country. And I have no doubt that many of you are following the live stream on the Parliament's website. And those of you who are not able to follow the live stream, I have no doubt that you are seeing clips on Facebook, you are reading about the presentations in the media, conventional and social. And you would have come to your own conclusion by now. We have been saying over and over again that the opposition is completely unsuitable to be in the National Assembly. I have said that repeatedly. You listen to the arguments, you hear what they say, and you get a clear impression of their vision, of their mentality, of their ideology, of their philosophy, and you know, perhaps more than I do, of their track record. And when you combine everything together, they are simply not fit to represent the people of our country. The lack of vision is so bare, it is so naked for anyone listening to see and to hear. These people do not understand how a country works. They cannot see the big picture. They are obsessed with small things. They magnify hiccups that are occurring in the society, in the public sector. They hold on to things like, oh, the cash grant is not being shared properly. Not that the cash grant, not that every Guyanese will receive $100,000. They have no recognition for that, no praise for that, but they hold on to their life, that it is not being shared out in the time frame that they would like it to be shared out. Now, this is a massive exercise, never done in this country before. And yes, we are learning. We are not perfect. And we have repeatedly assured every single Guyanese that they will get their money very shortly. A lot of the money is in the budget. I believe the money that we had to share out, to distribute, we have done that. The rest of the money, the remainder of the money, is in the 2025 budget. We can't distribute it unless the budget is passed. So we have to go through this process, and upon the conclusion of the passage of this budget, then the monies will be distributed. That they're making a big issue of. It is the small things that they are obsessed with. They don't see the big picture. They can't see the importance of the infrastructural development taking place in the country. They can't see the importance of our roadways, new drainage system. They can't see the importance of the important bridges and physical connectivities that we are making across this country. They can't see the importance of schools. They can't see the importance of hospitals. What they say, people can't eat those things. But you tell me of a society that has advanced. You tell me of a country that is considered developed without those fundamental amenities. But this bunch can't see the importance of that. They want the cash. They have convinced the people that it is their money and they must get all of it. Well, I will deal with that more in my budget speech, that approach and that mentality. Tonight, I want to deal specifically with an important issue that is repeatedly being canvassed by the opposition. And it is this issue of biometrics. So, we know the issues very well, but the opposition has in recent weeks galvanized their energies in the direction of GCOM. And the issue that they are using to direct their wrath against GCOM is the issue of biometrics, and they are making the connection that because of the absence of biometrics, GCOM is incapable of delivering credible elections. That is their argument. Now, it is not a new strategy of the opposition. It is not a new strategy of the PNC. They have employed this strategy for decades now. And I'll go through it for you historically. When they realize, as they have realized now, that they cannot win a fair elections, when they realize that they cannot secure the ballots of the electorate in majority to win an elections, they always direct their attack and their scrutiny to the electoral system and GCOM. And by doing that, they are focusing their supporters' attention to the electoral process and to GCOM, the body that has to administer the elections, and they are building the hopes of their electorate, of their supporters, that they will win the election, and they can win the election, but they will lose because of GCOM and because of elections not being free and fair. That has been their strategy for decades now. They need to direct the attention away from themselves. They're not going to speak about their dismal performance. They're not going to speak about their neglect of their base and their supporters over the past 5 years. They're not going to speak about that. They're going to focus energy and attention towards GCOM and the electoral process. And they're going to build a case against the electoral process and against GCOM. And when they lose, they now have a basis to tell their supporters, well, this is exactly what we were speaking about. And they have done that, as I said, elections after elections since the restoration of democracy. In the 1997 elections, listen to me carefully, in the 1997 elections, that is, after they lost the 92 elections, they canvassed for the use of an ID card. They canvassed for the use of an ID card as a requirement to vote. They did it, you know. They said that they want an ID card and that every voter must have that ID card, and if they don't have that ID card, they will not be permitted to vote. That was their position. The PPP was in government and the PPP agreed. The government, the PPP government, laid an amendment in the National Assembly to make the use of that ID card a requirement to vote. It was called a voter's ID card. Both parties supported that law. In 1996, I think it was passed. They went to the 1997 elections with that ID card law being in place. And I'm repeating, they requested the ID card, the use of voters' ID card. The government agreed. We went to Parliament, we passed the law. 1997 elections came. The ID card was used as a requirement to vote. They lost the elections. They started burning and the beating and the looting on the streets. The records are there. So much so that 3 wise men from CARICOM had to come here and broker the Hermanston Accord because of the violence, the beating, the looting, the burning. While all of that going on, they launched an elections petition in the name of Esther Pereira. And among the things that they challenged in that elections petition is the use of that very ID card, which they asked for and which the PPP government agreed to and passed a law for the use of that ID card. That was one of the grounds upon which they challenged the elections. And Claudette Singh, no other than Claudette Singh, was the judge who heard that elections petition. And Claudette Singh ruled in their favor. Claudette Singh ruled that the elections was null and void because of the use of the ID card. Claudette Singh, using the Constitution, said that that law that required the use of an ID card in order to vote added a requirement that the Constitution did not have. A requirement to vote that was not in the Constitution. And as a result, that law collides with the Constitution and therefore was unconstitutional. I will read this whole all the relevant provisions of the Constitution to you shortly. but I just want you to understand the narrative. So, and I'm emphasizing who the judge was, Claudette Singh. She ruled in their favor. The PPP lost. The elections that the PPP won were declared null and void and unconstitutional because of the use of the ID card. The same ID card that PNC asked for, and when they lost the election, they went back and they challenged the elections on the use of the very ID card. Now I want you to listen to me carefully because I will bring the similarities between that event and what is going on now. So let us examine what the Constitution says in relation to voting. And you can check this, check the Constitution. It is online. Go to Article 59 of the Constitution. Article 59. I'll read it very slowly. It reads, subject to the provisions of Article 159, and I will explain what 159 says. Subject to the provisions of Article 159, every person may vote at an election. Every person may vote at an election if he or she is of the age of 18 years or upwards and is either a citizen of Guyana or a Commonwealth citizen domiciled and resident in Guyana. You heard that? Any person may vote at an election if that person is 18 years and over and is either a citizen of Guyana or a citizen of the Commonwealth, resident or domiciled in Guyana. Those are the requirements to vote in Guyana. As I said, subject to provisions of Article 159. Article 159 requires you to be registered to vote. Article 159 requires you to be registered to vote. So, once you are registered and you are 18 years and a Guyanese citizen, you are qualified to vote. And this is the Constitution, the supreme law. Any law that is inconsistent with this law is void to the extent of that inconsistency. So when they passed a law in 1997 to add another requirement as a qualification to vote, that is to say, a voter's ID card, they made that law inconsistent with this Constitution. And the Constitution says that any law that is inconsistent with it is void to the extent of the inconsistency. Because this is called the supreme law of Guyana. So you understand? When they passed that law in 1997 to say that if you are so the Constitution says you are a Guyanese, and you establish that, if you go to the polling station and you establish that you are Guyanese, and you are 18 years old, and of course you are registered, you were supposed to vote in accordance to the supreme law. But that other law in 1997 then required you to produce an ID card, a voter's ID card. That is not in the Constitution, but that law says that you must produce that ID card. So you would have qualified under the Constitution, but under that law, you still had to get an ID card. So if you didn't have an ID card, you lost your constitutional right to vote. If you didn't have that ID card required by that ordinary legislation, you lost your constitutional right to vote. This is the boss when it comes to the laws of Guyana. Everything must comply with this, all the other laws. And when they conflict with this, they are unconstitutional to the extent of the conflict. You understand me now? All right, I'm taking my time so that you understand. Let's go to 159 now. Remember I said that 159 deals with registration. This is what tells you now how you are to register to vote. Remember, once you're registered, you are to vote once you're a Guyanese and 18 years. I pause here to say that nowhere in that provision of the Constitution that I just read is there any requirement of being resident in Guyana. Not for Guyanese citizens. There's a residency requirement, but it applies to Commonwealth citizens only. Once you are 18 years and you are a Guyanese citizen, full stop, you are qualified to vote. That is what the supreme law says, the Constitution of Guyana. And at the side note, every constitutional provision has what you call a marginal note. The marginal note reads qualifications and disqualifications for electors. So I hope that part is very clear. 159 says, it begins, 1, no person shall vote at an election unless he or she is registered as an elector. So you cannot vote unless you're registered. Same thing I'm saying all the time. 2, subject to the provisions of paragraph 3 and 4, a person shall be qualified to be registered. Now you are qualified to be registered as an elector for an election if he or she is 18 years or upwards. So you're qualified to be registered. Once on the qualifying date, you are 18 years and over. It's the same thing. And is a Guyanese citizen. So once you're 18 years and over on the qualifying date for registration, they must register you. And once you're a Guyanese citizen. And you have no person shall be qualified to be registered if he is insane, of unsound mind, etc. So you're not qualified if you're mad. You're not qualified to be registered. The law is very, very clear on this matter. So you have the Constitution, and these provisions were the provisions that were interpreted by our High Court in a case filed by the PNC challenging a measure that they advocated for, and that court ruled in their favor by declaring those elections null and void, declaring them the winner of that case. And that's how the elections were set aside. So they won. They went to the court and they won. And Claudette Singh was their judge. Good. Fast forward now. It is President David Granger. Of course, when Claudette Singh ruled in their favor, she was the best thing out since sliced bread. She was the best thing. Go and read the raving reviews. Justice Claudette Singh is a great jurist. She is fair. She's a champion of a woman. Go and read the reviews. That is why when leader of the opposition submitted her name, in fact, after they rejected 80 names and they unilaterally appointed 80 names from the leader of the opposition, after they rejected 18 names, 3 submissions of 6 each from the leader of the opposition in accordance with the Constitution, and President Granger proceeded to unilaterally appoint James Patterson as the chairman of GCOM. And after the CCJ declared that appointment to be unconstitutional and send us back to hammer out a chairman, must read the judgment. The CCJ said that the leader of the opposition and the president must sit and hammer out a chairperson that will enjoy the confidence of both of them. Well, the leader of the opposition, Bharat Jagdeo, and President Granger appointed persons as their respective emissaries to hammer out a consensual candidate. And I was one of the persons representing the leader of the opposition. And Joseph Harman led the team for the president. And they came up with the name Claudette Singh. They came up with the name Claudette Singh. And the leader of the opposition accepted Claudette Singh and sent the name Claudette Singh back to the president. And that is how Claudette Singh was appointed. So Claudette Singh was their nominee. Am I clear so far? I'm taking my time so that you follow me as I go to where I want to go. So, Claudette Singh ruled in their favor, upheld their submissions in Esther Pereira, ruled in their favor, declared elections null and void for the against the PBP because of that objection to the use of the voter's ID card. Fast forward now, the same Claudette Singh is at GCOM. Now, there is one major intervening event. And that intervening event is the 2020 elections. The March the 2nd, 2020 general and regional elections, over which Claudette Singh presided as chairperson of GCOM. You know, and the world knows, and they know that they lost those elections fair and square. The fact that they cannot produce their statements of poll is, in my view, indisputable evidence of their loss. We have produced our statements of poll long before the declarations. I will not dwell on the 5-month imbroglio and their multiple attempts at stealing. I'm not going to go into that. But all of you know that, because I don't want to detain the argument. So when Claudette Singh did not aid and abet them to steal the 2020 elections, Claudette Singh obviously became their sworn enemy. You see, they expected that Claudette Singh would have conspired with Lowenfield, the chief elections officer, and Mingo and them to defraud the electorate. That is what they expected. But Claudette Singh did not do that. Remember, she ruled in their favor. They nominated her to be GCOM chair, so they felt, and they were confident that once they unfold their fraudulent scheme to pervert the results, that Claudette Singh would have been a willing participant. And they were obviously shocked when she did not participate. And Lowenfield became a rogue. The CCJ call him, I can't remember what they call him. They call him, use a word, he was I can't remember right now. But he became a rogue chief elections officer, refusing to take directions from the commission. Of course, their three commissioners, Alexander, Corbyn, and Trotman, every position they took was consistent with what Mingo was doing and what Lowenfield was doing. So they were all on one side. And of course, our commissioners were on the other side. So Claudette Singh had to be the casting vote all the time. But if Claudette Singh is bound to do what is right and what is lawful and what is constitutional, where you expect her to cast her vote, not on the side of constitutionality, not on the side of legality, not on the side of righteousness. Now you're hearing that Claudette Singh has never voted for them, has never voted once for them. Well, if on every occasion their position is contrary to the law and contrary to the Constitution, what you want the lady to do? When your position was consistent with the law, she ruled in your favor in Esther Pereira. And she threw the PPP government out of office. That is what she did. The PPP had to go to an elections 2 years before the expiration of a five-year constitutional tenure. She took 2 years from a PPP government and gave it to you basically. She was good then. When the law, according to her, was on her side, she ruled that way. Now, because she's ruling in a way that you don't like, she doesn't want to, she's not encouraging you and supporting your skullduggery. She's now bad. She's now voting only for the PPP. She ruled in your favor. She threw a whole government out of office for you. And that is why I am taking my time, so that you understand this narrative going forward. So now they want biometrics. Now, I have said to you over and over again that we have biometrics in our system already. We have fingerprint, we have fingerprints, we have pictures, photographs, we have distinguishing marks. All of that are in our database. Those are biometrics. Biometrics is not a magical word. So we have biometrics already in the system. And we have several safeguards to ensure that a wrong person can't come and vote. So let me assure you that there are multiple mechanisms in place. You know, you vote. You have to be registered. Your name must be on a list. You can only vote at that polling station where your name is on that list. When you turn up at that polling station, you have a presiding officer, an assistant presiding officer, a poll clerk, and you have a representative of every political party seated there as polling agents. When you walk in, you have to show your ID card. First, you have to tell them your name and show your ID card. They have to look at you, and they have a folio with your ID card there. All the polling agents have it. So your name is announced. Every polling agent turns to the folio. They look at a copy of your ID card. A photograph of your ID card is there with your photograph. Every one of them say, yes, she's Mary Jane. They'll find your name on the list and they tick it off. Mary Jane is here, she's voted. They cross your name off. They hand you a ballot. And then you vote. All those, tell me how a wrong person can come in there. When all of that is done, at the end of the day, those paper ballots, and not only each polling station has a maximum of persons that they cater for. You can't go over a certain limit. They split the polling station, so you don't have many ballots to count. I think about not more than 200 or 300 persons voting at one polling place, one polling station, sorry. A polling place may have several stations. And that's why you have an alpha geo split. You have people in certain parts of the alphabet. If your name is A to K, you're voting at this station. If it is K to N, you're voting at another station. That is how this thing is, so that there's no confusion. And at the end of the polling process, everybody reconcile. They count the ballots, you check your record, every polling agent check their record. They sit down with the presiding officer and they check off. Every ballot is examined. And every person has a tally sheet. And you ticking off, are you seeing on the voters list that his names are marked off so you know that these people voted? How can somebody, and then there's the ink. I forgot the ink. That is stain, that is irremovable. All of that are already in place. Now they want electronic biometric now. They said the manual biometric system can't work. We only have 500,000 voters here. In India, there are buildings, 3-4 buildings on a street that may have more than 500,000 people. In the US, there are some avenues that have more than 200,000-300,000 people. We have this whole country, and we have just over 500,000 voters. 500,000 pieces of paper you can't count manually. But because they are likely to lose, they want to come now with all these technical artifices so they can fault it in the end. So they come up with this idea of biometrics now. And Claudette Singh, the judge who has authoritatively settled the law in Guyana on the issue of voting and qualifications for voting, has said to them again the same ruling that she gave in Esther Pereira. She said to them again, she said to them, biometrics is just like the ID card in Esther Pereira. That if a voter turn up and you prevent him from voting because he doesn't satisfy some biometric requirement you have, you are doing the same thing that was done in the 97 elections. The same thing you're doing, you're adding a requirement that is not in the Constitution. As I said to you, the Constitution has 3 requirements. 1, you must be registered. 2, you must be 18 years and over. 3, you must be a citizen of Guyana. Now, they want to add that you must have biometrics in the system. That's a 4th requirement. They wanted to add ID card, a voter's ID card. in 1997. Not a normal ID card, a voter's ID card in 1997. They wanted another requirement. They now want biometrics, another requirement that is additional to what the Constitution prescribes. And that is what Claudette Singh, myself, Ralph Ramkaran, and any person who has studied this issue is saying. To do that would be unconstitutional. And Claudette Singh has made it very clear to them in a statement that if you do that, it's the same thing you are doing as was done in the 1997 elections. And the same Claudette Singh ruled that they were right then. Now she's ruling the same way, but it doesn't suit them now, so she's wrong now. That's the point I want to make. Claudette Singh ruled on the identical principle in Esther Pereira in relation to the 97 elections. They were happy, they won, they were right. Now it's the same principle. They are committing the same legal wrong. She is wrong now because it doesn't suit them. So, and Nigel Hughes is a lawyer. Roysdale Ford is a lawyer. They must understand these things. I have to credit them with that. They must understand these legal issues. They are therefore being deliberately obtuse, and they are being deliberately obstructionist to create the foundation so that they can say when they lose the elections that the system defrauded them. Or worse yet, they can boycott the elections. In either case, they want to sow the seeds to cause mayhem, violence, riots, and disorder in this country. That is what they're doing. That is their game plan. That is their game plan. I see, if the biometric, I'm saying to you, and I'll bet everything that I own, that if we decide to use biometrics, I am telling you that if we decide to use biometrics and make it a mandatory requirement as they are asking, and they lose the election notwithstanding that, I am betting you everything that I own that they are running to the court to challenge the elections, as they did in 1997. This is playing out all over again. If you don't see this as clear as day, then something is wrong with you. Remember, they are not bright people. They can't think out of the box. So they are in the box. The old recycled arguments they are bringing forward again. The old hackneyed argument is what they are bringing forward again. These matters have been settled by our court. Settled by the very judge who is now the chairman of GCOM. What a fortunate coincidence. What a fortunate coincidence that Claudette Singh, the same lady that ruled in their favor in the 97 challenge in Esther Pereira, on the very issue, is the lady who is ruling against them now. But they have a problem with it. So they are laying the basis to do what they know best, which is cry fraud and try to cause disruption in the society. Cry fraud and cause disruption in the society. Now the GCOM chair did say that if you want to use the biometrics as a backup, it can be considered as a backup, not as a mandatory requirement. as one of the methods or facilities to verify a person's identity. Yes, we can do that. So you add that now as a measure to the manual menu of measures that we have. We can do that. But what that means is that if the person fails the biometric, the electronic biometrics, you can't send him away. You must allow him to vote. Claudette Singh in her statement said that. And we wouldn't have a problem with that. If you want an additional method, yes. But it cannot be mandatory. Because from the moment you make it mandatory, and this constitution remains as it is, it would lead to deprivation of a voter's right to vote. And once that happens, then the elections would be null and void. Only one voter is required to say that he has been disenfranchised. And the entire election goes. And they know that. But what GCOM has determined that time is not available now for this election to bring that biometric as an option. Time is not available. And it is GCOM's place to say that. GCOM under the Constitution, Article 162, is empowered with a plenitude of power to determine, Article 161, determine how elections are to be held, not when. The president determines when, and GCOM takes over after. They have to ready the machinery to prepare the country for elections. And they must determine, they are independent, they must determine in accordance with the law what can be done and what cannot be done. But the laws in their current form must be complied with. You can't bring a new law now to add a new measure that will require a whole set of things when we have a time imperative. Elections are constitutionally due by November of 2025. That's the outer deadline. The president has the power to call it any time before that. The outer deadline is November. And GCOM has to make itself ready. Now GCOM are going to add a new measure that will require every single Guyanese to go and have their fingerprint electronically done and put that in a system and then make that system ready make those fingerprints ready at every polling station, because there has to be a corresponding print when the voter turns up. You know what you're talking about? That will take a few years to be completed. And for what? Why must we delay an election that is constitutionally due because of some whimsical and capricious request from two opposition parties who can't win the elections? And the only reason why they are requesting these unreasonable measures is because they cannot win the elections. They have failed to establish that the current system is not working. When you compare the current system with all the risks to a new system that's electronic, Guyana is vast. I don't know where you will get internet, if you can get internet throughout this country. We have to face the realities of this country. We have an electricity problem here. And you have an opposition party that is set back to steal. Once an occasion presents itself, they are going to steal the ballots. No other country has this unique problem. There is no other country in the Caribbean that I can think of where the opposition party attempts to rig the elections every single time. When they were in government for 28 years, they stole the elections. They rigged the 1968 elections, 1973 elections, 1980 elections, 1985 elections. They had to be dragged by the scuff of their neck to come to free and fair elections in 1992. And every year after that, every elections after that, they have attempted to steal. Every single elections. And every time they're coming up with a new strategy. After they lost the 97 elections, in addition to that election petition that they filed, they demanded house-to-house registration for the 2001 elections. They demanded house-to-house registration. We had to complete that. For the 2001 elections, the Hormanston Accord, that was one of the conditions. We did the house-to-house registration. They went to the 2001 election, they lost again. They burned, they beat, they robbed, they broke up the country. When we were coming to the 2011 elections, they wanted another set of house-to-house registration. We did a house-to-house registration in 2008 to 2009. We went to the 2011 elections, they won a majority. They were saying then that the list was bloated. They won a majority. They were saying, we went to the 2015 elections, they were saying that the list bloated, it got dead people, all kinds of complaints. They won the 2015 elections and the list was perfect. The list was perfect. Coming up to the 2019 elections, 2020 elections, they unilaterally appointed Patterson and GCOM to start a new house-to-house process. Retire the database. Throw away all the people who were registered and start a new database. That was their new way of rigging the elections. They would have only registered half of the qualified persons in the country. In fact, that's what they were doing. They were skipping PPP strongholds. They were not registering persons whom they perceived to be PPP supporters. They were skipping villages, going to half of the village. And the plan was to retire the entire national database and create one. And they would have registered half of the electorate only, majority of their supporters. So they would have won the 2020 elections even before the first ballot was cast. I had to rush to the court. We went to the court and we got a declaration from the High Court to say that if you retire that ballot, that database, and you remove from it persons who are already registered, you are disenfranchising those persons. One day I'll sit down with you and go through that judgment so you understand. That is what they're doing. Every election is one artifice, one contrivance after another. They are fabricating all sorts of issues. Why? Because they can't win a free and fair elections. And that is the burden that every Guyanese have to fetch. Every freedom-loving, democratic-minded Guyanese. That is a burden you have to fetch, unfortunately. You have on your back the PNC and the AFC now. Parties who are constantly looking to steal your ballots and steal your votes. And the only reason why they continue to exist is because of race. It is because of race. From the time we are able to address the racial problem, the ethnic problem of this country, the PNC will disappear. They will disappear. They have no track record, they have no vision, they have no plan for this country, and they never had. Never had. What they have a track record of doing is rigging elections, or attempting to rig elections, or scheming to rig elections. That is what they are known for electorally, and that's across the globe. So I thought that I'll spend some time tonight to explain this biometrics thing so that each and every one of you can understand. And when you hear Alexander and Corbyn and Trotman and Hughes and Patterson speak on these matters, you must be able to see through what they are saying. It's all a facade. It's all a charade. They want to lure GCOM into a rabbit hole, into a trap. They want to entrap the electoral system in another scheme of theirs so that they can rig it and frig it. That's what they want to do. So thank you very much for spending the last 57, 58 minutes with me. I believe that I have, in some details, I have considered the issues and I have articulated them for you. And I sincerely hope that you are now in a better position to understand these issues, and you are in a better position to adjudge these persons when they speak publicly or when they write. You must be able to adjudge them for what they are. You must be able to decipher what their true intent is. Don't bother with the fancy language and the sophisticated way of speaking. Don't bother with that. It's a veneer. It's a charade. It's a facade. Thank you very much. And please continue to look at the budget debates as they continue. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Enjoy the week. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Stay healthy. May God bless you.